Hello guys, and welcome to the YouTube Property Sisters UK YouTube channel. Today I am so excited because we've got Chris Morgan. He's from Derby City Council. He is the Principal Regeneration Manager, and we're going to hand over to Chris in a second. But what I'm so impressed with Derby City Council is they're really looking to work with smaller developers and helping us build out flats in the city centre to help the regeneration process. And Chris actually reached out to me after he saw me do a presentation and said, basically, well, how can we help you? And that really sparked my interest because no one from the council has ever said that before. So we had a meeting last week just to discuss what the council, how they can help us, and how we can work hand in hand. And really I wanted to share that with everyone on our YouTube channel as well, because there are a lot of developers out there with the same kind of stumbling blocks as we're getting. So Chris, I just wanted to ask you, first of all, you tell me a bit more about who you are and what your role is in Derby City Council.
Thanks, Ruth. That's a nice introduction. So as you say, I'm a Principal Regeneration Manager. There are a number of Principal Regeneration Managers, but I'm the only one within the housing team. Okay, so I work within the Strategic Housing Division of the Council. My team is specifically there to accelerate housing development within the city. It's a team of 3. So there's myself, who heads up the team, Laura Simpson, who works on projects generally in South Derbyshire that have a border with the city, and Michael Gilly, who leads on city centre projects. So as I say, our role is to accelerate development within the city centre and beyond the wider city as well. My background is regeneration, really not housing. I'm a project manager. I've got a lot of experience in managing, kind of major schemes, whether that be business support, road building, IT, lots of different projects kind of over the years. So this is my first stint in housing, if you like.
Yeah. What are your objectives in terms, because you have really only worked with the big developers at the moment, doing big housing schemes. So why did you reach out to me? If you just let our audience know.
Well, obviously that's partly down to the current situation, because a lot of developments have stalled in the city, and I think small to medium-sized developers particularly are desperate kind of for finance to get developments moving. So that's the one angle to it. But of course, the council itself needs to stimulate development in order to meet its housing targets. That's not to say we haven't tried to work with small to medium-sized developers before, but I mean, our focus, I guess, primarily in the past has always been on the bigger housing numbers, because we know that we need those big developments to come forward in order to meet the targets. But we also have to accept we need some of those smaller developments to come forward as well. Otherwise, again, we're likely to hit our housing targets.
I mean, there are 2 things that we really struggle with, and that is finding funding and actually finding the sites. Even in Derby City Centre, where you do have a lot of empty shops and empty commercial units, it's very difficult to find those sites. And I obviously wonder to myself, why is it so difficult? So are you saying that there may be funding available if developers like us, we can find sites that work?
Yeah, so the City Council has a scheme called City Living, which I've sent you details of, which is a loan scheme. We've got just over 5 million in the pot for this year and next year. We do also have some grants within that, which are about just under 200k. Now that can support both works, but also feasibility works as well. So typically, we might look to put 50% of a feasibility cost in jointly with a developer. I say typically because we haven't done it as yet, because the pot's quite small, but that pot is available. We're also trying to get more money in, not just loans, but grants as well. So we made a recent application to the local enterprise partnership, to D2N2, to actually get grants for city centre developments for flats above shops. Now that initial application was unsuccessful, But we are working on a business case to hopefully make sure that application is successful for next time. We're also talking to Homes England both about bringing more grants into the city centre, but also more loans as well to back our city living programme. So we've got quite an ambitious programme at the moment. So it's a really good time for us to be reaching out to small to medium-sized developers.
Yeah, and you were saying that you're primarily interested in certain regions within the city centre, and they must be flats rather than HMOs.
Yes, so the focus of that application to the local enterprise partnership was specifically the St Peter's Quarter and the Cathedral Quarter, mainly because we knew that was what the LEP would be interested in primarily. However, that's not to say that we're not interested in looking at other parts of the city as well. I know you've sent me some details about a development on Curzon Street. So, some of those areas in and around the kind of regeneration areas like Becketwell would be of interest to us because, we've got a major development. We've got a 200-300 million pound scheme coming forward at Becketwell. So obviously it makes sense to try and bring forward some of the surrounding areas as well as part of that. So we'd certainly be interested in looking at some of those kind of areas as well.
Yeah, and that's a really exciting development right in the middle, isn't it? It's 200 million pounds. I'll put some links on the description to the city living development, the PDF that you sent me, and I'll also tag in some information on the new development that's already got planning consent. So I'll tag that in as well so that people can have a look and see the regions that the council are interested in. In order to qualify for funding, you obviously have to be a small developer already. You have to have some kind of track record. There's no point just setting up an account now and thinking you're going to get funding through. You have to have done some kind of development work. Is that correct?
That's not specifically one of the criteria, but obviously it is a consideration for us when we're putting quite a bit of money into a scheme. We like to know that the companies and the people we're working with have got that background, and if not, that they're working with somebody who has got that background.
Because we need to have all the numbers bottled down, and you need to see the deal analyzer and what all the figures are for that project.
Yeah, I think that's probably more important actually, that the developers understand the numbers. So they've got an appraisal that works, that says that the development is viable essentially, and that they've got control of the numbers, and it's a good quality application, if you like.
Yeah, and what is the percentage that you're looking to do the loan at?
That, to be honest, will vary. I mean, the one that so the one that we funded in the past was around about 5% interest rate, but again, it will depend very much on the individual application and the developer. We do also have the option of working with Homes England as well. Now, Homes England possibly have a bit more flexibility than ourselves as well to be able to offer finance, and their rates do vary. So we also make referrals to Homes England where appropriate as well.
Can you tell me a bit more about Homes England and who they are?
Yeah, so Homes England is the government agency that's responsible for housing in this country. So they manage a lot of different schemes to fund developers. Some of those are grants, but the vast majority of the straight to developer programs are loans in the same way as city.
Yeah. Are there? I know this is a question that some developers are going to ask me, and that is, are other councils doing a similar thing in their local city centre areas? Do you know?
That's a really good question. That's probably something I should have a bit more knowledge of. What I do know is that, for instance, in Nottingham, I know that they're looking at similar initiative to us about flats above shops, specifically in kind of heritage based areas. So I know that Nottingham is looking very closely at that at the moment. I do have a lot of dealings with Derbyshire authorities, particularly where all of the Derbyshire authorities are involved in a working group at the moment, looking at modern methods of construction.
Yeah.
So we have a regular meeting kind of around that, and we also have a housing officers group meeting with the Derbyshire authorities.
Yeah.
Where we don't have so much connection is the Nottingham side, the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire authorities. Although again, we are looking to develop that a bit further in the very near future. So, you know, our probably sphere is probably more the kind of Derbyshire side rather than much wider.
Sorry, a question I forgot about the loan is it just for development finance or equity as well, the purchase of the property?
Well, certainly what we funded in the past has just been development finance. I have to say that in my view that the council should also look at equity investments as well. I think that might actually work better for us and for certain developments. That's not being tested, but that's not to say we wouldn't consider it.
Yeah, interesting. Another question here. Do you work closely with the Derby Inward Investment Agency, Marketing Derby? Because you know, we're a bondholder for Marketing Derby, and that I've been really impressed with what they do and how they help small developers like myself.
Yeah, I mean, the council has fairly regular meetings with Marketing Derby. I perhaps used to be more involved on the regeneration side with Marketing Derby than I am now in housing. That's probably something that, you know, maybe our team needs to address a little bit more. But certainly the relevant departments do have a lot of meetings with Marketing Derby. Yeah, we obviously view that relationship as very important.
Yeah. So for smaller developers in Derby, if they want to know more information, where should they go? Should they email you directly and ask for more information?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to give out my contact details. If people want to contact me directly, that's absolutely fine.
Fantastic.
We don't have a team mailbox as such, which is a bit. We probably should do it at some point to get a team mailbox. But certainly in the meantime, I'm more than happy for people to contact me directly. Then, depending where the inquiry falls, I would either deal with it myself or pass it on to one of my team to deal with.
Yeah. I mean, we're very passionate at Urban Sister about helping in any way that we can to get the information out for people to go and, you know, buy empty properties in Derby, because we feel that it's, you know, according to the statistics, outside of London, people have the highest disposable income here, which is just absolutely incredible. I couldn't believe that statistic, yet there is literally no one living in town. So it's that massive kind of dichotomy, that kind of, like, you know, it's so wealthy on the one part but has quite a poor you know, in a city, and it doesn't need to be that way. So for me, there's a massive opportunity there for developers to get in there and buy some property and convert to residential. So, you know, anything we can do to help to get that word out, we're going to do. So
yeah, I completely agree with that, Ruth. Yes, you know, we are very keen to try and more kind of city living. I mean, there are a couple of big schemes in the city that I think will test that water really. There's the Landmark building on Phoenix Street, which has come around the second time, you know, gone through the planning systems. That's a 202 apartment development on Phoenix Street, so that'll be a big test case. We've got Bio House as well on the Derby Riverside area, which, you know, 105 apartments with consent. And again, you know, that's probably not necessarily stalled at the moment, but obviously the owners are probably waiting to see what happens with COVID before really progressing with that. So there are a couple of schemes which will be good to see coming forward, and will probably give more smaller developers and investors a bit more confidence to invest in the city, because it is an issue, certainly.
yeah.
I haven't got him in front of me, but I know you wanted to ask about council sites that
oh yes, I did, yes.
So yeah, we are looking at, well, there are a number of council sites that are going to be made surplus to requirements at some point. We are looking at that, you know, kind of in the near future. That's, you know, that's clearly not guaranteed because it will need our approvals first.
Is there an email list that people can get onto for that if they want to know more about empty properties for sale or council land for sale, etc.?
Yeah, I think if people just email me, I'm happy to you know, to look at that. As I say, it's at the moment that this is still all going through the kind of processes, so I can't give any certainties about that. But there are certainly 2 sites that my team is working on that, you know, we are trying to bring forward for housing. So that was just the one point. The other point I was going to say is that again, I'm more than happy for people to use me as a first point of contact, as you're doing, for applications that are going through the planning system. And that's a key area where my team can help, because I guess if you like, planning officers, they're I guess it's their duty really to be fairly black and white, when it comes to planning, whereas, my team can really fill in some of those grey areas. So work with the developers and the planners to try and bring applications forward, and to get the the relevant technical people together to help with that process. So that's something we do on a fairly regular basis, which is probably not well publicised, but that's
which
what
actually
we're
is
there.
so handy, because, as you know, I've emailed you with 2 applications that I have that you're going to kindly help me with. So that's fantastic news for us,
Yeah.
because every day that hasn't gone through planning, it's money.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand that from a commercial point of view. So, it's something that we do a lot of work with, and obviously it's a little more difficult getting face-to-face meetings at the moment. But of course, we have got one. Well, we've got one together for actually a project outside the city centre next week, where we're doing exactly that, out in Normanton. So, I think certainly at the moment where everything's a little bit uncertain, I think that's a really good service to be able to offer to people.
It's amazing. I love it. So that's good. One last question here about affordable housing. There's another development team who works specifically on that. Can you tell me how it's possible to link affordable housing into developments as well?
Okay, so obviously there's a major need for affordable housing within Derby. So the other team within housing that works on that, they bring developments forward for affordable housing, but they also have the opportunity to enter into development agreements with developers, where they will say, okay, well, if you build a certain number of apartments, we'll purchase them from you at the end of that for an agreed price. But the condition with that is obviously there has to be an affordable development. So there are pluses and minuses of that, but it does give us the affordable housing we need, and might be a good way of getting some liquidity for some of people's sites. So they're 2 ways that they can either bring forward sites directly, or they can purchase sites. They can also purchase empty properties as well. I mean, this is another thing where we might be able to help a bit more, which is on the empty property side. There's not just that team that works with empty properties, but we also have a dedicated empty properties team. So for instance, you guys know of any properties that are empty and have been so for a while, that might be an opportunity for us to intervene and say, okay, well, we'll help you purchase, or we'll purchase that site to bring it forward.
Yeah, that's great. That's definitely another avenue for smaller developers to look at. I think that's all my questions now. Yeah. So I just wanted to thank you, Chris. That's absolutely fantastic. It's just a huge wealth of knowledge that I know I didn't have, and I would call myself, an experienced developer for 20 years. So, it's really kind of high value information you're giving us, and everyone who's going to watch this video as well. So I just wanted to thank you very much. We've linked all your details, your email address below, along with some PDFs, etc., more information. And yeah, I just wanted to thank you ever so much. Thank you, Chris.
I've really enjoyed it, and I think at the moment certainly it's much needed for us to reach out to developers and to do a bit more hand holding.
Fantastic. Thank you. I'll see you.
Yeah. Take care.